Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So this is the Scheananigans episode from September 1st titled Battling Intuitive Thoughts and False Narratives, which is regarding the Bethenny Frankel interview with Rachel that Scheana didn't get to really discuss last week when she had Ariana as a guest, so she was able to do it this week with her friend Janet. It's a very interesting podcast and I cannot wait to get into it with you guys, so let's do it.
Welcome back to Scheananigans, everyone. We've got Janet Elizabeth back on the co-host mic.
Woo!
Yay, this is becoming like a regular thing again. I'm getting used to it.
I love it.
Now I feel like you're my security blanket. I'm like, how do I do interviews without you?
Well, I'm like still fangirling over you a little bit right now.
I'm still exhausted over me right now. Last night, my voice is like gone. I was supposed to go to the studio with the 27th after this to record a new track we're working on. I'm
Amazing.
like, it's going to be a writing session today because my voice is gone.
If you missed it, Scheana had a sold out podcast live show at the Bourbon Room and it was so much fun. Your performances,
so fun.
like Jenny Ting and I were sitting together and we were like bumping the bumps, screaming at the top of our lungs, like full on fangirling. We were like, oh my gosh, we know her. Like, it was so fun. I was so proud of you. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a dream come true. There were my OCD anxiety brain focuses on the flub I had, the thing I didn't say, or like there were no flubs. Little moments like that where I was like, oh, I should have said this. And then I was trying to low-key change the lyrics a little bit of Apples, but it was just so loud that you couldn't even really hear it. So when you're watching it, it looks like I'm not singing the right words.
Couldn't tell from where I was standing, and we were like front row on the side stage, losing our minds. It was so fun.
Yeah, so I wanted to shout out the Maui fundraiser, and then I was like, oh my god, I didn't do that when Lexi was on stage. So I was just like, don't hyper focus on those little details. It was such a good show.
Those are things you might have noticed, but as an audience member, it was like perfect, and we had so much fun. The audience was having so much fun. It was awesome.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had the best time. So Adam Newell, he did great. He was amazing. So he has his YouTube show, podcast, and all that up and at him. And he was like, hear me out. What if we open with the band and Good as Gold and you just start the show
I loved that.
With a bang? And then as he was walking me through it, he's like, I've done these shows before. I only did one at City Winery in New York. It was a very small venue, super intimate.
Yeah.
Tom and Raquel and Nima were my guests. It was a very different time and a different show. But it was great. I mean, it was probably half the amount of people. But it was just a different setup. There was no performance aspect. I did the splits. That was like the performance.
No, I think kicking off with the Screamo Good as Gold version was so much fun. Your outfit was fire.
Thanks.
It was just like, I mean, seriously, we were fangirling out. And I think that like livened up the whole room. I think Adam was right. It was, by the way, Jason, I didn't hear this. Jason was sitting a couple of people down. He was like, man, that man is good looking. And I'm like, and everybody afterwards was like, I think Jason has a crush on the host of the show. I was like, that's fine. He is very good looking.
No, he's so adorable. And I loved that he told the story of how we met at the live show.
Like, you're too good. You're looking. You need to be working at Sir.
I'm like, he was like 19, maybe 20 years old. He was not legal to drink when I met him. And I'm like, you're working at Malibu Fish Grill, which bomb food. Yeah. I would eat there all the time, but I was like, I see more for you.
Let's exploit those looks for some tips over at Sir instead.
Totally.
No, he's really cute. And he used to work at Pump too, right?
Yeah, and then he worked at Tom Tom. So he just kind of hopped around all of the restaurants.
All the Vanderpump places. Yeah. I was like, I feel like I've met him back in the day at Pump at some point.
Yeah, and then that's where he met his husband.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, thanks to Scheana pulling him out of Malibu Fish Grill. Here we are.
To the first, hey, you introduced me to my second husband.
Yes.
I loved his first husband jokes too. It was good. It was really good.
No, he was making some jokes we'll keep off the podcast for now. Yeah. Last night too.
Yeah. Wait, okay, I have to ask one thing. Yes, at the show, if you were there, it might be like on floating around somewhere.
Yeah.
Someone from the back, they did a Q&A session. Someone from the back, something, rim job, something. And I'm looking and I'm like, did she talk about rim jobs recently that I missed?
Confused. I'm like, is there a question? She goes, we had Summer on stage with us, and she was like, oh, maybe, you know, have her do earmuffs or something. So Summer's covering her ears. And I'm like, I think I missed the beginning part of this question.
It was something like, let's talk about this rim job, something. It was all sex stuff. And I was like, what is the question? And Brock kind of said, idea. Like, we'll just drink to that, yes to, or above all, or what, I don't know.
Brock literally also, he's like a Jax where he just says the complete wrong thing. So in the car after, it was me and Madison in the back, Heather McDonald in front, and our friend Carla. And we're driving to Melrose Place for our after party. And Brock, I was like, why would you kill Allie in a game of marry, fuck, kill? Why? Who would kill Allie?
Like, he said like Ariana he would marry, and then I forget who he said he would fuck if he even
Lala.
got that far. Okay. And then he was like, I'm gonna kill, and everyone's like, we know the answer. Like, you can pick from any castmate. I think he thought maybe it had to be from the girls.
So that's what he says. So we're driving to Melrose Place, and he goes, look, I'm an asexual male who, and I was like, what did you just say? And he goes, am I bisexual? And I was like,
oh my gosh.
Brock, I go, oh my God, you are not saying. He goes, what? And I go, you're a heterosexual. And he's like, yeah, that one. That's what I meant. I'm like, don't be going around being like, I'm an asexual male.
like, where is Scheana getting it in then?
So he's like, no, I'm a heterosexual male. I'm like, I understand that. The game was any cast member.
You were the obvious kill. There was a very obvious kill in this group.
Literally two very obvious kills. They don't have to be current cast members. It wasn't like only pick from the 4 women on the show right now. But I'm like, why are you going to kill Allie? And he's like, well, if I kill Katie, Allie, she's going to come back and haunt me.
She'll actually kill him. Yeah. I saw Allie for a second afterwards, and she was laughing about it. She goes, when he was thinking like, who do I kill? Who do I kill? Allie said that she was nudging James, and she was like, he's going to kill you. It's going to be you. It's going to be you. And then she was like, then he said Allie. She was like, me? She was like, kill James. I was preparing him to get killed. And all of a sudden, but she was laughing about it too. It was funny. But we were like, poor sweet Allie. You can't kill her.
No.
Oh, Heather
so
McDonald
funny.
Killed it too. She's so funny.
So good.
Her jokes about talking from the form of a baby on Instagram when from Baby Grams was, I mean, we were cracking up.
Yeah.
Like she was amazing. So
no, she was the perfect guest, because what I did do at City Winery that was different than this show, I had a stand-up comedian open up the show just so there was like that sort of performance aspect and a warm-up to introduce me and whatnot. And I thought about doing that too, and just like having Heather McDonald open up. Yeah. But then Adam hosting it just kind of made sense outside of me.
Yeah.
And
she was perfect for host. I feel like she was the perfect guest.
That's what I
right
thought.
In the middle.
Yeah. He was like, you should see if Heather can be the guest. And I was like, that is a great idea, because then she can still do her comedic bits and say what she wants to say. And then I had the idea. I was like, well, what if we do this game where it's like you start with the Karen, you know? Everyone has something to say about a Karen. And then it just naturally goes into how, unfortunately, Rachel seems to be the new Karen. And
okay, I know you talked about it last night a little bit with Heather, but I haven't actually had time to sit down and ask you. Can I ask you some questions about this Bethenny interview? Because I'm dying to know some stuff. And I watched your podcast with Ariana, which was amazing. And I thought you guys cleared up a lot. And like, it was great to get Ariana's feelings and opinions out there, because of course she has them. I know that both of us didn't actually listen to the interview. We read a transcript of the recap because we didn't want to give her actually a listen. No. But I have like some questions about that I feel like are still kind of floating around unanswered that I wanted to ask you today.
Yeah, and no, that's fine, because I felt like last week I really just wanted to do my best at not making my show about me, you know? Because the fans, listeners, the haters, whoever, they really have an issue with me ever bringing anything back to myself.
Well, don't tune in to the Scheana show if you don't want it to be the Scheana show. That's all I have to say.
But last week I wanted to just do my best and let Ariana get her side out. I mean, she was calm. She was articulate. Totally. I felt like she was empathetic and insightful and just all of the things. It was such a great interview, but I wanted her to be able to answer to what was just said about her, because there were some really hurtful things that Raquel and Bethenny said.
Totally.
And Ariana doesn't have a podcast right now. You know, she might come back and do one again one day. And I know right after the scandal, she did Call Her Daddy. Like, obviously, I think there's Joe Rogan and Call Her Daddy, two of the biggest podcasts out there.
Right.
So if you have an opportunity to do that, of course.
Yeah.
But that was also when it was really raw and fresh. And
totally. This is more of a safe place with a friend where she could actually just like kiki and like have it be a real moment to like talk about it.
And that's what I thought. And so I was like, I don't want to make any of this about me. When she made the restraining order comment, I was like, okay, we're going to go in on this a little bit. But my goal was just to let her speak and just hear what she had to say, because until you watch season 11, you know, you're not going to really get a lot of what she has to say, because we're not doing podcasts right now unless we have our own.
Right.
We're not doing interviews. You know, TMZ catches us on the street. We're not giving them much more than maybe a short soundbite. So I was glad that she was able to come on and just have a safe space to discuss everything. And then I'm seeing all of the comments. It's like, oh, we're still on this. You have nothing else to talk about other than Rachel and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, first of all, there was new information that just came out. She just did a 3-part tell-all, whatever you want to call it, with
14
Bethenny.
Advertisements in it, can I just point out, between all of that. So
I had 3 ad breaks on mine and maybe 6 ads, so
but
also I even
are you exploiting your guests?
No. And the thing is, I even told Ariana, I said, because when Brock and I were asking her if she would be comfortable, you know, giving her side on mine, I'm like, we're all going to have to talk about it eventually. If you have something you want to address, you know, you're welcome to come on mine. And she was like, yeah. And then Brock goes, and don't worry, we won't do what Bethenny did. You know, we won't take any ad breaks. We won't make any. I was like, no, honey, I actually contractually.
But that's different. Bethenny and Raquel were not friends before this.
No.
You and Ariana have been friends for years. What I really liked about the podcast that you guys did is it felt like Ariana was very much her true self. She's a very level-headed, calm, like kind person. And I feel like the last kind of thing maybe that people stick with or like have think of her as is like the reunion. Yeah. And that's not an Ariana I know at all.
No.
Like that's somebody I saw for the first time. And, you know, I've been friends with her for 6 years now.
Yeah.
I've never seen her that sad, angry, upset. So this was kind of a time to like address some of the things in like in the true form of who she is.
Totally.
Which is a, you know, a very calm, kind human being.
And also when we take the ad breaks, it's kind of a time to just, you know, recollect your thoughts. Be like, okay, we're going to go into this next. Are you okay with that? But yeah, I do feel like I'm kind of still on a high from last night.
Last night was so funny. Okay, also Summer Moon for her first appearance with her cast off. And she had the cutest little dress on. She had her hair curled. She was like so adorable. She and Ocean running around. First of all, they're like BFF goals.
It's so cute.
Their friendship is like, I want that. Yeah. Like they're just so cute with each other. And when Summer was on stage with you at one point, I don't know if anybody else could hear it other than like kind of your friends and family section, but Ocean was reaching for her going, Summer Moon, when she was on stage.
Why are you on stage without me?
She was like, that's my girl. We're supposed to be doing this together.
Right.
And then I think Lala let her like run up for a minute and she got her moment. And both of them did not want to get off stage.
No.
They were loving it.
No, did you see Summer
had a little meltdown.
When I was singing Apples, she wanted to be up there with me. And it was just so loud. And I wasn't even thinking that with the live performance I should have brought her headphones because she wasn't going to be like right there on stage when it was only 2 songs. Right. You know, the rest of the show wasn't so loud.
She was ready. Headphones or not to be front and center stage. And Ocean too, when she was up, I saw Lala on the side of the stage and she was like, come here. Like it's time to, and she was like looking around and I think at one point she said like no, like to Lala. She was like no, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cute.
No, it was so fun. But we have photos after of Summer just crying and I'm like, she just like, and I saw as I'm like jumping, I'm like, hey PPLES, and I see Brock walking with her and she's just like, Ariana was like, oh I feel so, I'm like, it's only a 2-minute song, kid, we got this.
You know, rather a meltdown to like get back on stage than like getting up there and being like scared of the crowd. Right. Like I feel like you never know how a kid's going to react in that. Well, but she loved it. Like both of them did. It was adorable. I was like, oh, you could do like little stars.
Waving to everyone.
She was like throwing, I think somebody gave her a little bracelet. Yeah. Which a really sweet lady gave me this boy mom bracelet. Oh,
yes. She told me she had something for you.
I think.
Yes.
Okay, yes. She was so sweet. But, I think they gave Summer bracelet. She was like tossing it back and forth with them on stage. I was like, oh my God, she's a natural born star.
No, it was so cute. What do you think is in future for your little boy?
I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see.
How have you been feeling?
Feeling good lately. Yeah. Yesterday was so hot out. So it was just like, I was sweating up a storm, but good.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I feel like second trimester, everybody says is like easy.
The best.
I just the other day taped or saran wrapped a watermelon and 2 cantaloupes to Jason and made him do stuff around the house with me to see, like, I was like, we'll see. Cause he was like, oh, it's not, he doesn't think it's at that bad, I think. And at first he was like doing stuff. He's like, oh, I can squat. And then when he tried to bend over and he realized you can't do that, he was like, oh, well, that part's hard. And I was like, that's, right. I was like, that's the part.
Yeah, you get to the point in the third trimester when you're like at the 8-9 month mark and you're like, I can't tie my own shoes.
Yeah, I was just like, and I'm starting to get there. And then now, like, when I get out of bed, I'm like, can you give me a lift? And Jason will put his arm up and I'll hold on to it instead of trying to lift with my belly. But it's all around good pregnancy stuff so far.
Well, you look great. Your pictures with Jenny Ting, you guys holding hands and doing all that was so cute.
We're bump twins. I love her.
I love it.
It's so much fun. We're 1 month apart.
I know.
On our due dates.
You guys are both having boys. And that's how, like, Lala and I, we were 3 weeks apart, but then she delivered 3 weeks early. Yeah. So the kids are going to be the same.
We send each other summer and ocean content. We're like, this is going to be our boys.
Right?
We're like, this is so cute.
And I love that you're both having boys.
I know. It's going to be super fun. I love her. She's just great.
No, so good. Such a...
And we know Jenny Ting through Raquel, which I'm sorry, so many burning questions about. I have to get off my chest.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Go. First one, timing wise, with like the Bethenny interview.
Yeah.
Why now? Do you think that Raquel like just got out of her treatment and she wanted to do something as soon as she got out? My first like thought was, well, Bethenny's, really rich. Like, you know, she has millions and millions of dollars. Maybe I was like, at first, before they kind of cleared this up, I was like, she must be getting paid like $100,000 or something to do this podcast interview. Right. They said later in the comments, I think Bethenny said she was not paid, and then kind of said like, we'll see if she gets paid. But I'm like, why now? Like, what do you think timing wise of like, why? Like,
that's what's so weird, because it's like you're not coming back to the show. You are wanting to change your name. You're not wanting to be in the spotlight. You don't want to come back to LA. You don't want to be a part of this friend group. You don't want to speak to Tom Sandoval anymore. Supposedly, right? But what's also interesting, I noticed, and this could be a total weird coincidence, but the day the interview came out, like 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, Emmy voting was the next day on Thursday.
Interesting.
And I'm like, I don't know that they were trying to hurt something with Vanderpump Rules, but that was just a weird coincidence as well. So then when, part 3 came out, I was like, oh, Apple's is dropping today. We can't get it on Spotify in a day. We can't get it on Apple Music in a day, but we can get the lyrics video up in a day.
I love it. I loved the timing for it, because you were going to release it like in a week or two after that, right?
Yeah, last night was going to be the debut. So I had the lyrics video made so I could send it to the venue and we could make sure we could sync up the audio with the video. Because when you're especially performing a song live, you can't hear every word. Even when I sent it to my mom, she didn't realize I was spelling apples. She thought I was saying, hey, keep the alias. How you like that? Or something. And I was like,
oh, that's funny.
No, that actually does work too. But I was like, no, it's APPLES.
I'm glad that you actually did that, because everybody was singing along with you and knew the lyrics then already. So it was kind of fun for like audience to participate in singing it instead of hearing it for the first time and then going home and listening.
Right. I just wanted them to be able to download it when they got home. And so it was like the original plan was to have it released around then. And then we had the artwork made, which was not ready yet to release. So the song, hopefully the day this podcast drops, the song should be out. Yeah. That is the goal.
Are you doing Apple's merch?
That's what I want to do too. I just made, my sister made me the hoodie last night with the 27 and the apple on it. They're like, this can't be a one-time thing. I was like, you guys, I got everything on Amazon. I just made it myself.
You got to release it. I want some Apples merch.
We need to do some Apples merch. So working on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another Bethenny, Raquel, Rachel. I don't know what to call her. It's so weird.
The thing is, whatever comes out of my mouth, if I'm looking at a note that I have or something, when I write down Rachel, if I want to address it, whatever. But I feel like when I'm just telling a story, it's easier for me to just say Raquel, because I've known her as Raquel for years. So long, you know?
Okay, my question then, timing-wise, kind of got that, but like, why Bethenny? Because as far as I know, they didn't know each other from the Bravo universe before any of this. Yeah. As far as I know, they've never met. No. So why Bethenny? Like, I mean, behind the scenes, maybe it's something that viewers don't understand, but you can get paid for these interviews. She could have gone on and probably gotten
and I did hear she had offers.
Yeah, so she could have gone on to probably some pretty big networks, podcasts, things like that, and gotten a pretty paycheck, which, you know, she's claiming she's in debt and made no money and all this kind of stuff. So why Bethenny? My first thing was Bethenny's rich, she paid her. But when they kind of disputed that, I was like, well, then why? Because
I'm also curious where her $361,000 went. Obviously taxes, part of it, but
she kept the tags on her reunion outfit to return. So I'm like, you're not blowing money on wardrobe. Yeah. I don't know about that too, but
I did see there was like a TikTok or something I think that Bethenny did where she made like a sympathetic comment about Raquel's situation. And I know I saw somewhere that Raquel's mom, I guess, was like a big fan of Bethenny. So
interesting.
What I heard was that they reached out to Bethenny. And I feel like maybe they thought, oh, well, Bethenny's already, you know, sympathetic towards our situation and what she's going through. Even when Bethenny had never seen the show. She knows nothing about Vanderpump Rules.
I'm like, Howie Mandel a bit at the end. I'm like, come on.
Literally, Howie Mandel 2.0.
Because that's what the viewers who invest their time and years of watching, they want to see somebody who knows what they're asking. Yeah, I thought that was really strange. And yeah, the whole, I guess, I don't know, the whole part with Bethenny, I'm like, you know, here's the irony is like, here's Raquel talking about everybody's made money off Scandoval except for me. First of all, girl, you could have made a merch account.
Right?
You could have sold merch just like everybody else. You could have put the other woman on a t-shirt and sold it.
Didn't Sabrina Carpenter or someone do that with, it was something like negative that was said about her, but she literally put it on a sweatshirt.
I mean, might as well.
She could have made home wrecking merch. Yeah. People would have bought it.
Right. I mean, there was people who were out there, but I'm like, here she is, the irony, doing a podcast for free and while she's on that podcast complaining that she didn't make any money. I'm like, girl, do you not realize that this podcast is the opportunity, this interview is the opportunity you could have made money on?
Right. I feel like maybe her PR team.
No.
What was that?
Sorry, I was trying to watch the Raquel Leviss.
Oh, I was like, wait, did I hear something? I feel like maybe her PR team felt like they could control the narrative more if they went with someone who was already sympathetic towards her, you know, situation, whatever you want to call it. If she went with like ABC News or TMZ or something that they wouldn't have any control, and with someone like Bethenny, they could maybe control the narrative a bit.
But worth losing the paycheck that she's complaining about over.
Right.
I'm like, it just, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know. I felt the same way when Tom did Howie's interview. I'm like, oh, how convenient to pick someone that's never seen the show before.
Right.
Because they can't ask the follow-up questions. Like,
he said, who is Scheana?
Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like when he said that, I'm like, why are we watching this? And it's almost insulting as viewers because I'm like, when you listen to these podcasts, you're screaming all these follow-up questions at them and they don't hit any of them.
No.
And you're like, what's going on here? So it's like, I guess it's easier to portray the victim role to somebody who doesn't know the history.
Yeah. And I think with Bethenny's whole reality reckoning movement that she's trying to start, is it a movement? Is it an idea? I don't know.
Nail in the coffin for that.
But I feel like some of Raquel's narratives that she told, you know, fit within this movement she's trying to do. But let's remind ourselves, this affair did not happen on the show.
Yes.
This was not a part of season 10. It was a secret from season 10. It was something that they literally tried to cover up with Schwartz.
Yep.
Like, this was not a storyline. So if you want to say this was a whole thing to try and save the show, who was going to tell production that this was the plan? Because nobody knew.
If we're talking about saving the show, Ariana saved the show by as soon as she found out, which Tom and Raquel wanted to keep it. They wanted to deal with this behind closed doors. Ariana called production. She's the one who brought it on the show.
Yeah.
But I thought that same thing when she's almost insinuated that production kind of, look, producers ask you guys to meet with people or do things, you know, that you always have the right, I think, to say no to. But they're like, hey, you know, we're going to set up a dinner with the girls and, you know, everybody. But if you're not speaking to somebody, you can say, no, I'm not going to that. If they're going, she makes it sound like this was a production setup. And I'm like, first of all, if production asked you to sleep with Tom for 7 months behind closed doors, What you just said, yes, and then you said blamed it on them
they're
later.
paying me $19,000 an episode, so I guess I'll do what they want me to do. Like, what?
So I'm like, this isn't, and it all happened behind closed doors off the show. They had to then bring cameras up out of
because of Ariana.
Yeah.
Because she alerted production, hey, this, so for Sandoval to say, you know, Ariana was never honest about the truth of their relationship. Look, if I'm being honest, there are definitely things with Shay and I back in the day, Rob and I, that I wanted to keep, you know, private. I wanted to keep a little bit of privacy, but that's not what we signed up for. So if Ariana was doing that out of what I think respect for Sandoval, because just like when she covered for him with Miami Girl, she didn't want people to think the worst of him.
Right.
So if she was hiding anything, I think it was out of protecting him and out of respect for him.
Totally. And you guys only get, I mean, I think people think maybe that it's like Ed TV or whatever that old reality TV movie was back in the day, where cameras are around you guys 24/7. Unfortunately, because production involves sound people, camera people, all of these people that they are in unions and not allowed to work like more than 12 hours, or I don't know what it is, but they're not following you guys around 24/7.
Right.
So, you know, if you do have a fight with your significant other off camera, it's like, well, yeah, that might be, I don't know how many hours are in a week, but like if you're filming 40, let's say, then like, yeah, a lot of stuff happens off camera, and it's not like you're going to be like, hey, we got into a fight last night, we resolved it, but let's talk about it again on camera. Like there's a lot of stuff that will happen off, and like I don't think that's that strange to like not bring up every fight or little thing.
Totally. And if they felt like their relationship was on the rocks, you know, that's something that's not necessarily going to make it better.
Right.
Like, for example, I feel like Brock and I are in a really good place in our relationship, but we go at it.
Yeah.
And this is the first relationship that I've been okay with having some fights on camera.
Right.
Showing those aspects of our life, because
and how you work
that's
through
real,
it.
you know? And yes, how we work through it. But I'm like, everything's not perfect.
Yeah.
No one has a perfect relationship. We disagree
Marriage
on parenting.
is hard.
We disagree on who watches our kid, because, you know, my mom has her opinions and then Brock wants this person. But then it was just like, there's so many things. But I'm like, that's a part of our story. We talk about it on this podcast. I talk about it on the show because that's the reality.
Well, it's real and it's relatable.
Yeah.
I think most people probably, especially when they have kids or have something going on in a marriage, it's, you know, that's relatable.
Yeah.
Something also tie into Brock with all of this. There was a comment made by Raquel on the Bethenny podcast about how Brock was going to make an offer on the house next door to you in Palm Springs, and that Lala stole it from him. And I was like, I had never heard about this.
Right. So when I heard that, I was thinking, I'm like, wait, Lala, when did you close escrow? And then I remember it was actually the day we shot the reunion, because then we drove out to Palm Springs the next morning.
Right.
That was her first day in her house. So I was like, okay, Raquel and I were still friends when you made the offer. I was trying to think if there was a way that I said something that made Raquel think that.
Yeah. I was like, where did this come from?
The only thing I could have said to her was maybe when we were in New York or whatever, I was saying how Brock went over next door to talk to the neighbors about my friend putting an offer on the house.
Yeah.
We wanted, because there were other offers from other neighbors who wanted to get it for a rental property.
Right.
And I had Brock go over and we're like, no, like we need this house for Lala.
I see. Okay.
So I don't know if there was some confusion with that,
You were like,
but I'm
let's
like,
do it like a more like a pocket listing kind of thing and sell it to my friend who's not going to be renting it out. It's
right.
Be
And I'm like,
her
this
residence.
is my, you know, forever home until I get a bigger home in Palm Springs. And if I'm going to have new neighbors, I loved our neighbors. They were so sweet. I'm like, can you please pick my friend?
Yeah.
It was never Brock wanted the house.
Well, I was like, what? Why would Brock want the house next door? You guys have an amazing house in Palm Springs. What are you going to build a bridge and have it be like, I don't know, compound? I was like, what is happening here? I had never heard of that.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that was so weird.
Okay. So there's no truth to that.
No.
Or like anything like that.
No, there were, oh God, there were a lot of things that she said that there was not truth to.
Yeah. Oh, I also want to know, she said that Tom, okay, this is my other thing. She said Tom was offered a producer credit for season 11, which I was like, if any of you guys were offered a producer credit, it would give you more control over some of the editing, some of the casting, like, you know, scenes, maybe you would get a little bit more say on like, you know, how the show runs, how it's produced. So I'm like, there's no way Tom would get offered a producer credit and not take it.
No.
So if he got offered a producer credit, you would see in the credits of the show, producer Tom Sandoval.
Stay tuned, I guess.
I'm like, so, but
like that doesn't, it's not how it works, you know?
Yeah.
And also when Raquel said, you know, that she didn't want to come back to the show for her mental health, but then she also said she would have come back to the show if her
mental health has a price,
making as much as Tom and Ariana.
Yeah.
So it was like,
I was wondering that. She was like, I wouldn't come back for my mental health unless you paid me enough. Then I'll destroy my mental health for, you know, whatever it is. And for whatever her episodic rate is, there's a dollar amount on what she is willing to risk her mental health for. Which was kind of, I mean, she contradicted herself a lot in that. That was like kind of, I don't know. She also said something about like, well, everybody on the show has cheated or done something like this. And I've just gotten like the worst of it or the worst response to it. But I'm like, for me as a viewer, I've seen every episode of Vanderpump. You know, a lot of the cheating stuff happened early on in the show when everybody's living in apartments, dating, they don't own homes together. It's not marriages. Like, I thought of Tom and Ariana as a married couple. Like, it definitely is like life partners.
Yeah, like a common law spouse or whatever it's called.
Very much so. If they didn't want if Ariana didn't want the paperwork, like, I didn't see them as any different than like Jason and I.
No.
And but I think a lot of the cheating for me as a viewer happened early on when the stakes were a lot lower. It's like,
we were in our 20s.
Right.
And it was like cheating on both ends. You know, Kristen slept with, sorry, Kristen, most of Tom's friends.
Right.
And
Tom slept with,
and then Tom and Ariana had their thing when him and Kristen were still together, but Kristen was already sleeping with James, and it was just, and Jax, and it was so messy.
The stakes there were just, you hurt people's feelings, not like you have to list your home for sale and potentially lose, I don't know, money or whatever. So I'm kind of confused why she thinks she got it. Well, I'm like, well, of course you got it harder than anyone else. Also, none of those cheating things, those were all kind of like, you know, we know the Kristen and Jax like movie drive situation was like that time. It's like not like this 7-month long love affair where people say they're in love with each other. Yeah. And I'm like, this is why it was so, you know, so much bigger for you. It's like nobody else was really a mistress where they saw a long-term relationship that they've seen for 8-10 years, whatever, however long Tom and Ariana were together on the show be destroyed. That was a much bigger deal.
Yeah. So many different elements and levels of this affair and betrayal. It wasn't just like, oops, I banged your friend once, I'm sorry. Yeah. Which also, by the way, those took years to come back from. It wasn't like after Stassi backhanded Kristen, they were best friends sipping rosé the next day.
Right. No.
It took years.
Totally. And everybody refusing to be around each other and all of that. I mean, Stassi left the show after that for a while. Like, I think that the others still had their blowback and stuff. This was just more because the stakes were way higher in this situation. Yeah. My question is, okay, for restraining order and all of that stuff that happened, I had Raquel reach out to me. I think I've mentioned this before, like a month or two after everything happened. And she said, like, thanks for reaching out the day of and basically, you know, telling her she should apologize, that stuff. Has she reached out to you at all? And if she did and seemed apologetic, would you hear her out?
I had been, I mean, up until this podcast, literally, and I haven't blocked her or anything like that. I had been waiting to hear from her because I felt like it would have been a much different conversation now after her getting out of this facility and everything. I absolutely would have heard her out. But
it's big of you.
Now that the podcast was the nail in the coffin, you know.
She really downplayed your guys' friendship, and that I was watching that, and my jaw. I saw clips of it when she was talking about you, and basically she's like, "I'm her cat sitter," and I'm like, "What?"
When Heather brought that up at the show last night,
how hard is it to watch a cat?
First of all, she said because of mercury shots or something. I'm like, Penny Lane had a radioiodine procedure done on her thyroid and for 3 weeks was radioactive and couldn't be around anyone under the age of 18. I have a baby.
Right.
And also I was breastfeeding at the time, so I was worried about that as well. We still had our house in San Diego. Raquel needed a place to stay. So I was like, well, you know what? Because my mom and sister were planning on just checking on Penny, making sure she had food and water. But cats are self-sufficient. Litter box, food, water, occasional cuddles, you know, they're fine.
I've watched your cats before.
Right.
You just kind of get to be at your house.
You don't need to do
good
anything.
Snacks and drinks, and they're just kind of there.
Right. And also, while Penny was radioactive, they said even adults had to have less than an hour time within a few feet of her per day. So Raquel really didn't have to do anything. It was also 3 weeks out of the 6 months.
Right. I mean, I was around, it was not being filmed, but like you gave her a place to stay. I mean, like, it's not like she was paying, like, you know, how much your apartment cost.
No, it was $1,000 towards my $4,300 rent.
Right. And
she took care of electricity, not parking, not cable. Couldn't stock it with toilet paper.
I was going to say, I went over there once and it was like you had just gotten back and there was like no toilet paper, no paper towels, all
no water.
That stuff.
The Brita had like mold in it. And I'm like, girl, come on.
Like keep the place running.
And then I reminded myself, she's never lived on her own before. So then I just felt like I needed to be the mom in the situation where I had to walk her through when you live alone, when you have a roommate, when it's not your boyfriend taking care of you.
Who is
These
wiping
are things you do.
Like, what are you doing without toilet paper in the apartment? I mean, you did a lot for her. You were a very good friend to her. To hear her kind of like downplay that on the podcast and basically be like, she, you know, like she really was like a little sister. It was everybody, I think, saw that relationship and that was around you guys. That was the truth.
Yeah.
So to see her kind of downplaying it, I was like, what is...
And act like she was doing me favors on my podcast as if like my podcast was struggling and I needed her to save the show. She asked me after her breakup with James, someone who struggles with public speaking and always is very rehearsed. And I mean, she had, if you watch it, I think that one's on my Patreon. But she had a list of all of her handwritten notes that she was like, I need to say this, and then I need to say this in this way, and I want to say this. And I was like, don't worry, it's not live. It can be edited. But she came to me and said, I want to share my story. I'm only comfortable doing that with you. Can we do a podcast together? And I was like, fuck yeah. I've been asking you to do one with me for so long. We only did one together during the pandemic with me, Brock, her, and James in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
This one was so different because she had so much she wanted to say. So should I say that you used me as an outlet? You know, I'm not saying that. We were friends.
Well, it's interesting that she's saying this while on Bethenny's podcast. It's like, do you not see this side-by-side double standard? Like,
she doesn't know what that is.
I was expecting, you know, her to come into this. When I saw like the transcript of the interview and bites and stuff online, I was hoping to see a lot of accountability here. And instead what I feel like she said is like, oh, I was assaulted, but I was still the villain. And she blamed, there was a lot of blame game. Oh, Ariana and I weren't that close. Scheana wasn't really like a big sister. There was a lot of like things that I'm like, oh, she's not taking accountability really at all here. She's shifting blame to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how to make a question out of that, but like, how did that make you feel? And, you know,
I feel like she was just trying to make this, you know, public spectacle about her allegations against me, filing the TRO and all of that, because I think she thought it would like maybe reframe the narrative and people would see, oh my gosh, she's the victim, not Ariana. You know, Raquel was the victim. When I know for a fact, Raquel called people that night after I pushed her and said, you know, Scheana acted reasonably. I deserved it. I would never press charges. When someone had brought up like, oh, are you doing anything about this? She was like, oh my God, no. Like, I totally deserved that. Now, I think she said, I saw somewhere that I socked her in the eye. And again, I'm like, I don't do that. Yes, I did. I pushed you. You grabbed my wrist. I pushed you away from me. I didn't want you touching me. I pushed you away.
Well, I remember when you described it to me, I think the next morning or soon afterwards, to me, it sounded like what I call a bratty girl push, where you're like, just like,
yes.
You know, you're like,
how could you do this?
It's like how you fight with a sister where you're like, get away from me. And you just like kind of, you know.
And I was so fired up because I just found out that she had been lying to me for 7 months, but also zero emotion.
Right.
If that were me, I would be sobbing. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I don't know how I.
The secret's out. Like,
but it was just like, whoops.
Yeah,
got caught.
And I guess like if she's gonna double down now about that night, why not show up to court then? Like, why did she?
Because she was in Tom Sandoval's bed. That's why. paparazzi saw her leaving that next morning.
Okay, well, it's like, either show up in court if you really believe that this happened and fight it, but like her not showing up, and I feel like she backed down after that. From what I heard from mutual friends, she was like, no, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have filed that.
And now it's like you're doubling down and being like, no, but I was the victim. And I'm like, first of all, Raquel, did I try to contact you once after New York? I have never tried to speak to you again. So you got a restraining order
for harassment or something else. And it's like, this person hasn't tried to contact you one time.
You said first it was a cooling off period. And then you're saying that she changed her story so many times. And it didn't make sense, because then you also told Andy Cohen that you regretted it and you wanted to dismiss it. But now you're doubling down and saying you were assaulted.
I thought it was respectable when she said, like, I shouldn't have done that, because I don't think she should have done that. And seeing you go to court, leaving Summer. I mean, I saw you behind closed doors crying about having to deal with this stress, leaving, Summer, with your mom, where she's safe and everything, but like having to spend a whole day getting ready for court, going to court across town in the rain. Like, I don't know. So when she backed down about that, I was like, well, at least she's starting to do the right thing here.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think this provided me some closure. I've fully accepted I'm never going to get any sort of apology from her, and I don't need it anymore. At this point, this is just who she is. Yeah. She is not capable of taking accountability. Yeah. And, her actions and her behavior just further show this is not someone I want in my life.
It's not the person I think you knew.
It's not. That's why I was like, I'm mourning the loss of my friend Raquel while asking myself, who the fuck is Rachel? It's two different people.
It's a very good way to put it.
But I feel like her doing this and her dismissing our friendship and her acting like it was some like quid pro quo even.
No.
It was all of that. It has helped me fully move on from anything I was still feeling about her. I really hoped that she was going to come out of this facility, have a diagnosis, have a treatment plan.
And take accountability and say, I realize what I've done and I'm working towards not being like that anymore, instead of excuses. And I feel like all she learned in treatment, from what I'm seeing in that interview, is a new buzzword. She kept saying like vitriol, like over and over again. And I was like, I have never heard you say that word until now. But it definitely wasn't the accountability that I was hoping to see with her.
Yeah. No. And then you throw Graham, now a hippie on top of it.
Yeah, and she kind of tried to
so many things.
Back out of that there was a lot of blaming of everybody else around her. And I felt like Bethenny was just trying to steer it into her narrative of how reality TV is toxic. And I'm like, these two things are not, I don't know, it just didn't align for me. It was not, I think they thought they ate and left no crumbs. And I'm like, oh guys, no, like this is not it.
Yeah.
It was kind of a bummer.
It was, but at the end of the day, I feel like I have my closure. And
you have closure, that's good.
I wish her the best. I hope she continues to get the help she still needs and work on herself and stay in therapy and, just try to be a better person, because she did a really fucked up thing for a really long time. And I just hope one day she can realize that, instead of this doubling down, not taking accountability narrative, because that just doesn't fly.
Yeah. It's always good to work on yourself. I hope she does too.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I mean, and hopefully one day, I don't think she's forgiven herself yet, maybe yet. I think she's still kind of getting there.
Yeah.
So she needs, I think, to work on herself, become a better person so she can forgive herself. And then maybe once she does that and takes some accountability, maybe some other people will too. Until then. Okay, that was my last question.
Okay.
For about that. But I have a million others.
Okay. Enough about Rachel, Raquel,
that was my
Bethenny. I would love for that story to just die on the same hill that Bethenny is on with this fucking podcast.
I got all my questions out.
Okay.
All right, I have just some general questions. We talked about this a couple weeks, months ago. I don't even know the time. Where are you now with OCD and anxiety? I thought it was very brave of you to share what you're going through. And I know that you mentioned like at the show last night that, you definitely were very anxious about making sure that it, was a success, which it was. So where are you now? How are you feeling? And where are you in that process?
I had a lot of people actually come up to me last night and thank me. Aww. And that just meant the world to me, because I had this one girl and she was probably early 20s. And she goes, until hearing you on your podcast say about intrusive thoughts, she goes, I had no idea that that's what was wrong with me. And now her mom has taken her to someone and they've diagnosed her. And
that's amazing.
She was just like, that helped me so much. So she's like, please continue to talk about that. And I said, I will. I was like, I know recently we haven't done too many updates on that, but I'm glad you asked, because that just last night, I was like, I kept trying to, I was like, oh, I've got really good makeup right now. I don't want to cry.
Yeah.
But that's why I talk about these things on this podcast. And I like to be so open, because there's so many silent struggles that people deal with.
Totally.
And miscarriage was one of the first ones that I opened up on this podcast. And I had family members and friends who I had no idea had multiple miscarriages reach out to me.
Yeah.
And then when I started talking about my intrusive thoughts, like I didn't want to even for almost a year in therapy open up to my therapist about that, because I'm like, she's going to think I'm crazy. But then I'm like, no, I think she hears it all.
It's good for anybody to think you're crazy. It's a therapist.
Yeah.
Then they can help you work through it.
My therapist is amazing. And I felt like that was a safe space. And when I don't know what I was at that point, over a year postpartum, but she's like, I think you've been dealing with postpartum OCD. And then we started doing some of those exercises and questionnaires and stuff. And just realizing that was such a weight lifted off me.
Yeah.
Because I've always made those jokes my whole life when it comes to certain numbers. I used to only follow 420 and I would have to have the TV volume at a certain number.
Yep.
And the house needs to be tidy and my emails need to be cleared and I can't have any unread texts and all of that. And just finally being able to, like, sorry to people I work with, but I'm a little slower on the emails. I don't let it bother me. I keep up with my texts because that's one that that's just something with me.
But you're allowing some balance kind of into your life.
Totally.
Not rushing to do all the work stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I think it's really great, like hearing that, someone came up to you and maybe they didn't even know the phrase intrusive thoughts, and you having these experiences that you're not really sure what they are. And obviously you have, this platform, but you also have the resources to have a great therapist. And so there might be times where people are kind of like not open to therapy or can't afford it or not really sure what's going on, but hearing you explain what you're going through then puts kind of a title to like, oh, these things that I keep thinking about or feeling, it's intrusive thoughts. And just sometimes maybe putting a label on it and hearing like, that's what I'm feeling too. And then being able to like research themselves or go to therapy and say, I'm having intrusive thoughts, really helps people, I don't know, take the next step or like really get help. And I'm glad that you got to, I guess, have like interactions. I know you did like a meet and greet last night, and just to have like real connections with your fans, because I mean, I get DMs from people talking about it and how brave you are. And I'm proud of you. Like I've had my own mental health struggles in the past, and hearing you be open and honest about it, I think is like really, really amazing. Like you have a platform, you're using it for good, and connecting with people and hearing feedback that it is helping people, I think is really great. Yeah,
I've had so many people reach out, and I'm like, I will continue talking about this. Right now, I'm not on the Zoloft. I did feel that was making me slightly zombie-like, but I also know I was feeling a little better mentally when I was on that. So I wanted to give it some time to just completely have that out of my system. I do have Xanax. I take very... not as often, needed. Like very just much as needed, very rarely. But that's something where if I'm feeling really nervous or tense or anxious, it's a low dose. It's like 0.25. And I keep those on me because you never know when you might need one of those. And so for now, that's all I've been doing. I have not smoked weed in, almost, 2.5, 3 months now, maybe. Wow. And I feel better with that.
Good.
Microdosing is going to be the next thing I try. And then I'm doing an in-person EMDR intensive down in San Diego with my therapist.
That's amazing.
And hopefully that will help work out
So you're still
some of
on
these kinks.
the journey of figuring it out, and I think I've said this before, but like I love that you're a doer. When something's wrong, you don't just sit there and complain about it. You're like, I'm trying this. So I love that you're kind of going through the steps and like figuring out what's best for you and what works and what doesn't, and sharing it, I think, with others is amazing. Yeah. Because, when you do find something, you're like, wow, this really, really helped me, and you can share it. There might be thousands of other people that follow in your footsteps and that works for them, or just hearing like what you've tried and what, and maybe Zoloft will work for some people.
Yeah. And I
didn't
honestly
know that existed until,
Right. And I might end up going back on that because I do know whether it was a placebo or whatever, in the 5 weeks that I took it, I was definitely feeling better. Yeah. But before I got too dependent on that, I was like, I don't like how tired it's making me. I love having my energy back. I feel like I'm more present for my kid when I have the most energy possible. I still drink my caffeine, but we all do. So I'm going to try, our friend Kale has a mushroom business and he has teas, gummies, mints, and so I'm going to try that next and see what a low dose of that does. And I'll keep you guys posted on my journey.
I loved hearing about it. I think that's great.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask, okay, if you could bring back one former cast member who is no longer on the show back to Vanderpump, like main cast. I'm talking like Jax, Brittany, Kristen, Dana.
Brittany.
I'm trying to think who. Okay, I figured that would probably be an easy answer.
I miss Brittany.
And then if you had to bring back like one side character, I'm talking like the Laura Lee, Carmen, like any of the exes, Carter, like anybody kind of random that's been around.
Laura Lee. She did not have a long enough moment on this show. Yeah. I remember I ran into her at like Sidebar in San Diego years later. I would love to have her back. She brought so much to the show in such a short period of time.
Yeah. There's some iconic clips of her going around and people are like, where is she now? And I'm like, wherever she is, let's leave her alone. But if she did want to come back, I think everyone would be here for it.
Yeah.
I feel like she was a good one.
Yeah, she really was.
Do you have a peach and pit of just the last 10 years of Vanderpump? A scene that you're like, oh, that was fun and iconic, that was like, happy or, the best, and then something that you were like, God, if I could delete one scene from the show, it would be this?
I would have to say my wedding, the second wedding, last year, season 10 wedding was definitely the peach. I mean, the rainbow coming out of the sky,
magical.
Summer as my flower girl, and then just marrying Brock and our vows and all of that was probably one of the best moments I've ever had on this show. Oh, there's a lot of pits. I would just say most of season 6.
Okay, fair.
Just if I never talked about the TV on the wall.
Oh, yeah. It gets brought up a lot.
I have to do cameos, or they're like, can you say that 7 minutes? I'm like, oh, God, it's still a thing.
And then Jared Lips, I was asking him, I was like, I get to interview Scheana today. What questions? And he was like, she's had so many iconic scenes on the show. Is there anything of a couple of these that you could share, kind of like maybe something somebody doesn't know about these scenes or things that happened off camera? Specifically, okay, the first pilot of VPR, the crossover, when you went from Beverly Hills Housewives and then you walk in the back of the kitchen, like, was there anything there that we didn't see, or anything that was maybe, I don't know, left on the editing floor? Or
I feel like you really saw all of that. You saw that moment where the camera physically followed me get up and walk into the kitchen. It was the most seamless transition ever. People are like 20 minutes into Vanderpump Rules and they're like, wait, what happened to the Housewives?
Where did they go?
Where are they at, Yeah. So from what I remember, that was pretty raw and real. And you saw a lot of that. It's so crazy to think that that was like 2011 and 12. We shot all of that stuff.
Did you have any idea then, like, I mean, obviously you'd been in a lot of stuff. You'd shot pilots and, been, in the background or like had smaller roles on stuff. So you'd been around cameras. Did you know then that it would ever be, did you think like, oh, this is going to be like, we might get like 3 seasons of our own show and then it's going to die? Did you feel like this was like a big moment in that time where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this show and, this could be the rest of my life? Like, how did you feel at the time? Like, what did you think was going to come from that?
I felt like we would be so lucky if we were able to have as long of a run as The Hills did.
Wow.
I think they did 6 seasons. And I was like, how lucky would we be? And where I was at in my relationship was like, we got engaged season 2. And then we're like, oh my God, if we get a season 3, we get married.
Wow.
And then just even talking about what if we had a season 5?
Wow.
Would we have a baby by then? And
That's
just
crazy.
thinking into the future. But I could have never imagined 11 years and hopefully more later, would still be doing this. I was just so grateful each season because, and still to this day, and I think it's a realistic way of living, every season I live as if it's our last.
Yeah.
We give it our all because we don't know when this could all go away.
Right.
So I've been living that way since season 1.
Right.
And we're still doing it. But yeah, I was really hopeful that we would get to live out our initial contract and hopefully have 6 or 7 seasons. That would be great.
That's so funny. And you guys have well surpassed that.
Yeah.
Okay, when you are filming, can you tell ever when you are making a line that you're like, that's going to be iconic, and then it is? Like, for example, did you have any idea that when you held your arm up and said, it's all happening, that like that was going to become like your number one gif?
I could have only hoped, I feel like sometimes I say stuff and I think that was really good, but then it's not maybe, or it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that's where I also lack confidence because sometimes when I think I do something good and then it's not as well received, I'm like, oh shit, I should just not try.
Could you tell when Stassi said the Pinot Grigio comment to you? Did you know that was going to stick? You didn't think twice about that after?
No, I looked her up and down and I was like, bitch, get your own wine.
I love the up and down. It's such an iconic
would have
moment.
never thought that line would have been so iconic because in the moment it was just like a fuck you.
Yeah, people
and I walked away.
Still mentioning it 10 plus years later.
I know. So crazy.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, let me see if I have any last minute questions.
Okay.
All right, you already asked I was going to say which season was the hardest, but 6 for you. Oh, okay. A fun last question.
Okay.
Marry, fuck, kill.
Oh.
And hopefully you do better than Brock did last night.
Oh my God, he was awful.
Tom, or James?
Oh. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I feel like if you ask this question to at any other, like every season, it would be completely different.
Right? Because look, we saw how Schwartz's marriage ended up. James cooks. I can't see myself having sex with either of them. We're going to have to kill Sandoval.
Okay. I figured
but
that would be the
I would have
easiest.
answered it very differently before. I probably would have married him.
That's what I think too. I feel like if we combed through old podcasts, there would have been a marry, fuck, kill where he was involved and he would have been the instant marry.
Yeah, I'm going to marry Schwartz and just close my eyes with James, I guess.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thanks for coming on, co-hosting.
Thanks for letting me interview you.
Yeah, no, it was so fun. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
What a terrific podcast. I am so happy to hear that Scheana is making new music and thriving doing live shows and performing during them. That is just incredible. If you have not heard her new song, Apples, you need to go check that out. I will link it down below for you. It's such a great song, and many have said that this is kind of a diss track to Rachel. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below in the comments. I'm also so happy to hear our main Bravo man, Up and Adam, was there helping Scheana with her live show and getting to hear more about how they met. That was so awesome. Adam is incredible. So if you aren't subscribed to Up and Adam, you need to be. I will also link his channel down below for you guys. I hope that there are a ton more live shows that Scheana does, and I hope that we can all get a chance to go and see her live. From the sounds of everything, it seems incredible, and I know I'll be getting a ticket if she ever comes to the Northeast. That's for sure. After they talked about all that, that's when they got into the messiness that is the Bethenny Frankel and Rachel interview. Now, Scheana did talk a bit about this with Ariana, but it was more for Ariana to respond, and this was definitely her time to say her piece with everything. I loved that Scheana referred to the interview as Howie Mandel 2.0. I've been calling that since part 1 of the interview with Rachel. So I definitely got a good kick out of that. When they were talking about merch and how Rachel could have done her own thing too with the whole Scandoval, I think they nailed it when Scheana was like, she could have made home wrecker merch and people would buy that. And I agree. There is always an audience for everything. And there definitely would have been an audience for that merch. Or maybe Rachel could have made, I don't know, a lightning bolt saying like, this is what a Scandoval is. Like, there was plenty of things that Rachel could have done to make money and monetize off of this well-known affair. I remember when it first came out, there were 3 people I saw that were making merch, and they were all fan accounts of like Bravo fan accounts that had Etsy shops. And one of them, Ethel Opal, made the Scumbag and Cheater shirt using the Schwartz and Sandy's logo, but just changing up the wording. And that was to help raise money to help Ariana, which they got a hold of Ariana. Ariana said, I appreciate this, but I would prefer if you can donate the money to a charity, which they did. On March 15th, they showed that they sent over $5,386.57 to the Alexandra House for Ariana. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing. But even these Bravo fan accounts were monetizing off of this whole affair and giving the people what they wanted, which was merch. And I thought it was a great thing. And I understand why then, Lala took the Send It to Daryl and made her own merch. She saw them making merch, not spelling Daryl's name right, and she took that opportunity to monetize off of something that she said that everyone thought was the most hilarious thing, and I still to this day think it's the most hilarious thing. The point is, though, Rachel could have done the same. She still can do the same if she wants. Now, when Janet talked about how Rachel had the opportunity to make money on a podcast, but there she was not making money on Bethenny's, but complaining about not making money and being in debt, I think she nailed it. Scheana and Janet also talked about how Rachel, when with Bethenny, probably went with that podcast to be able to control the narrative, knowing that Bethenny had never seen the show. She had this whole backing behind her for this whole union for actors, and it just fit the narrative of who maybe she wanted to go with to be able to continue her narrative of what she wanted to put out there regarding the affair. There is a difference, though, between Howie's interview with Tom and Rachel's with Bethenny. Howie at least went on the Nick Viall podcast and he explained everything about why they didn't ask questions and things like that. Because Tom had put in place different stipulations that they had to abide by if they wanted him on the podcast. I mean, shit. Jackie, Howie's daughter, who also did the interview with Tom, she had 2 pages worth of questions that she wasn't even able to ask one of them because of the stipulations that Sandoval put in place for that podcast. It could definitely have been the same with the whole Rachel and Bethenny situation. We won't know unless Bethenny talks, and I don't think she'd say anything because that's just how she is. I also feel they nailed it with the whole, how did production make Rachel do anything? The whole bullshit about it saving the show too. I think they completely nailed it. Scheana said it beautifully because she was right. This was something that was hidden from production. This was happening when they weren't even filming. And Janet then nailed it Because she was right when she said that Ariana was the one who got a hold of production. She didn't know what to do when she found out, and she couldn't believe this herself. So what did she do? She called production. All the things that Rachel was insinuating during her interview was so off base and literally not even what happened. That is why I feel like she has tried to make herself a victim of things that didn't happen and were caused by her actions alone. Scheana had me with the whole, if production asked you to go sleep with Tom, you just go? Okay? Like, I was dying when she said that. But it's true. Production would never be like, you should go sleep with Tom and this would make a great affair and this would make some great TV. That would never happen. People need to think a little bit more when it comes to the situation. And I think people are forgetting the whole situation and everything that happened as a whole. I am glad to hear Scheana talking about the whole Palm Springs home, because that was another thing that bothered me during her interview with Bethenny. And the whole how Lala stole it under the rug from Brock. That never happened. And I'm so happy that Scheana touched base on this and went over all the details. I think Scheana would know over anyone what really happened and went down. So whatever Rachel is hearing or reading, she's getting the wrong information. And it is possible she maybe misinterpreted what Scheana could have said, but I don't see it being that. And here Rachel is passing along information like it's factual, and it's not. And that is the problem people have with this interview. She's sitting there saying factual things that were never true. I also think that Janet explained it perfectly about the whole, well, everyone has cheated remark, because a lot of people have thrown this out there and people just don't understand there is a big difference. Yes, other people have cheated, and like Scheana said, they were in their early 20s. They were just figuring out life and all of that. The difference is this was a full-blown affair that had never happened like this before, with a relationship of over 9 years. That's a whole different level of betrayal. It's so different. I think they nailed it, though, when they talked about it, and it was perfectly said in every which way possible. Now, when Scheana brought up what really happened with the whole cat comment and how the story really went, I was honestly like, damn, this girl never listened to a word Scheana said when they were friends. Because clearly she had no clue what really happened and what she was told to her. How do you get mercury and radioactive confused? Like, what? And Scheana is 100% right. Cats are self-sufficient. They literally don't need anything except for food, water, a clean box, and maybe a little cuddle and playtime. But you don't necessarily have to do the cuddle and playtime if you're cat sitting. Rachel made it seem like such an extensive task that, like, Scheana was asking for the world and then some, when really it was, hey, can you make sure my cat's okay? And come to find out there were stipulations put in place that she couldn't even be around the cat for more than an hour because the cat was radioactive. And that was just so fucking funny. Like, I was dying when she was telling that story. Lastly, something I can't agree enough about is the fact that this is who Rachel is. She isn't taking accountability, and her actions and behavior shows exactly who she is, and she hasn't changed. I'm happy that Scheana also provided us with a mental health check-in. I think that was great. I think it takes a lot of courage and strength for her to be able to talk about it, and knowing that there are so many judgmental people in the world that will never understand mental health and the effects it plays on so many. So for her to be so open is such an amazing thing. I'm so happy to hear that she's helped other people just by her stepping up and talking about her mental health. I think these are all great things, and more people need to do this. There will always be those people that don't understand mental health, and there are people that struggle with their own mental health that don't understand what other people are struggling with. But it's good to be open and talk about it and not be scared that they're going to judge you for what you say is happening with your mental health. And I think that was a very moving thing, and I hope she does more mental health check-ins, and I do hope this helps other people as well. Let me know what you think about this podcast down below in the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Make sure to also like this video and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, because then you will get notified every time I post a new video or go live. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.